Hey everyone, I'm
And
Debbie.
I'm Kelly. Welcome to Debbie and Kelly Live.
All right, what are we talking about today, Kelly?
Well, we're going to talk about different ways to increase the oxygen levels in your body naturally. And I
I
think
love this.
I know this is a big passion topic for you. This is something that you've put a lot of self-study into in the past year. Do you mind talking a little bit about that journey before we get into the meat of this?
Sure, I studied with breathology, and it's a breathing uh, foundation led by Stig, who is the world record holder for swimming underwater, holding his breath for 20 minutes. And Stig Severson, and he's an amazing guy, and he's always practiced a lot of breath holding, free diving, and other breathing methods. And I studied in this year-long program with how we can really make our bodies healthy through breath. And this happened all before COVID hit, which is just so amazing that, now this is our life focus. If you see, everything used to be like fitness and boot camp and yoga. And now, even with everything streaming and what we need to do for health, it's breath work. And this is something that like we breathe to live. We need water, we need breath. Without breath, we have very short life.
You do need to breathe. And we're going to talk about how often and what's optimal. But it's been really fascinating because this has related to a lot of the other areas of study that you focused on, but it's also an expansion of. And what I love about it is it's something that anyone can do at any point in their health journey, at any point in their fitness journey. Taking on these tools and having awareness about this is going to improve your overall levels of health.
Well, what I love about the focus of this is I've studied pranayama a lot through my yoga businesses and what I deliver in yoga. And when you mention pranayama, a lot of times people just glaze over, or they're not really quite grasping like, what are we doing? What does that mean? But when we talk about breathing, it's really simple. Everybody can relate to it, and that's why I really wanted to have this discussion and keep it in a way that kids, your grandma, we all breathe, but nobody ever teaches us how to breathe. And it's just really simple to keep us healthy.
Well, and here we're learning that the average adult is breathing maybe more quickly than they need to, 12 to 20 breaths per minute. This is just what is common across the board when they look at how often people are breathing in a minute and how deeply they're breathing. This comes up. Debbie, can you talk about this optimal 6 to 8 breaths per minute? I mean, that's significantly less.
It is. We really, we live with short breathing and stress, and we're not fully filling all five lobes of our lungs. And if you really take a deep breath and fill up, and you're conscious about breathing, you're focused on, the inhale, and taking a little extra time in the exhale, 6 to 8 breaths is pretty easy to reach. And I usually recommend even slowing it down more. There's a lot of times I practice with my yoga students and teach them that it's actually even easy to take 2 breaths in a minute. And they think that's just impossible. And I've got a cool tool for that.
I was gonna say, I think it would be fun to try it. I can be your student for this exercise, and then those of you who are watching can also do this with us.
Okay, let's do a test first. What I'm going to have you do is breathe naturally for 1 minute. So I'll start the clock and I'll kind of guide you through this. So first, just take a few normal breaths and then start breathing and counting your breaths, and I'll tell you when to stop. And when you count, an inhale and an exhale is one. So keep counting. We're at 20 seconds. 20 seconds left. and stop.
12.
And that typically is the average. Like even if you take a CPR course and you're looking at like how many breaths the average person breathes, and it's typically 12. But now with the stress levels that we have with COVID and wearing masks, a lot of people are breathing up in the 20 breaths per minute. And they're breathing very short, like just in the upper chest versus, all the way down into the belly, which we can breathe in different areas of the body. We can breathe in the back body, the side ribs. You can actually feel it expand. Some people say they can breathe through their toes and their fingertips, which it feels like that because you're drawing in oxygen.
That's
What I love is when I talk to people about breathing, is I bring up what I learned in yoga. Is we have this thing called yogi, bogi, and rogi, and people are like, "What is that? I've never heard that." And what I was told, and I got this from Cindy Lee from Om Yoga, and she would talk about how a rogi is somebody who wants to kind of work on their practice. Maybe it's yoga, maybe it's running, exercise, but life happens and they start and stop and they never get in more. So they're kind of a rogue, where they know they need it, but never practice. And then a bogey is somebody who is like a householder who, maybe practices 3 times a week or 2 times a week and is really like getting into the swing of it, but not yet dedicated. Where a yogi is somebody who's really disciplined and practice and does this all the time. And when we look at breathing, what she had shared was like a rogi will breathe usually around the 12 breaths a minute, where a bogey, you might be at 6 breaths. And this is where we're looking at optimal breaths. And then a yogi, maybe 2 breaths a minute. And where they come up with this in yoga is, with certain animals, like a dog takes many breaths and has a short life, where a tortoise breathes like 1 breath a minute and, can live 100 years. Where they looked at the yogis of ancient times would look at, so you only have so many breaths in a lifetime. So what you want to do is not breathe so much because you're limited. And they used to think the same thing with heartbeat. And it's really true where we're always trying to like lower our pulse rate, lower our breath rate, because we know that keeps us healthy. So there's something to it. So at 12 breaths, Kelly, you would be more of like a rogi, which is, when's the last time you practiced breath holding or breath training?
Well, what's interesting is since the onset in March of 2020 of COVID, I notice at night I'm breathing quickly and I'm breathing more shallowly. I notice it every night. And that it is challenging to take a deep breath unless I consciously go after it. So I haven't been practicing it, but I've been noticing the difference from the stress, just thinking about it. And then you start to think about people who maybe can't draw breaths and it's a rabbit hole. But
Right.
this is a tool. So this is something, you gave me, and I know we're going to talk about it in another show, but you gave me a device called the AeroFit. And I'm just starting to practice with that again I'm a singer, so this is important. Aside from what we're going to talk about in a second, I need healthy lungs that can sustain long exhales and inhales.
Well, you said something really important, and that's conscious breathing. And that's what we need to do is we need to consciously breathe. So I'm going to teach you, and Kelly, you've done this before, but I'm going to teach everyone how to actually achieve 2 breaths in a minute.
Oh,
So
great.
that we can breathe like yogis or like the tortoise. So it's very simple. I'll start you out. And remember, we count the breath as an inhale and an exhale. So what I'm going to simply have you do is inhale and then hold your breath until we hit the point where I tell you to exhale. So you'll breathe and then a little breath hold, and you'll find that it's really not that difficult. You might feel a little uncomfortable with the hold in a few moments, but it's not bad. So we're going to do 2 breaths in a minute. So get ready. Go ahead and begin your long inhale, and breathing through the nose is always what I recommend. Start your exhale. Try to draw the exhale out nice and slow. And when you get to the end, there's a slight breath hold. Inhale again. Begin your exhale. And you might even find those holds at the end get a little shorter once you get comfortable. Stop. That was 2 breaths.
You know, I have been able to do that very easily in past. It was a little more challenging today. It's
Well,
interesting.
and I'm guessing it's just again like our stress level, especially around breath, because we know with this virus it affects how we breathe.
Well, and optimal breathing here on the slide, and we'll talk a little bit more about this. It's not just impacting how long you can hold your breath and how long you're able to go if you're suppressed, if you have suppressed oxygen. It's the oxygen in your bloodstream, and that oxygen is responsible for a lot of different things.
You bet. I mean, and that's really the key is we want to have that maximal oxygen uptake. Like if you're an athlete, that's what you're always working on is your VO2 max. But even every day, we want lots of oxygen in our bloodstream. That's what keeps us alive.
Well, and
It's not
this
necessarily just breathing, it's bloodstream.
right. It's we cannot get at the fuel we need to move or to keep our organs functioning if we're not getting proper oxygen levels. And with that in mind, they say, and this is from Aerofit, 90% of our energy comes from the breath. So if we're not practicing conscious breathing and we notice general fatigue or even a little anxiety or depression, not only can breathing help with some of those mental states, but the energetic state, physical energy, is affected by how we're breathing.
Well, and our breath, it helps us with every function, like even metabolism. When we eat, if we're not breathing properly and we're stressed and we're holding our breath and we don't have enough oxygen, we're not even going to be able to break down the food and get the nutrients we need. Our body just stops functioning properly.
See, and I actually didn't know this until recently about the breaking down of food. This is something you've probably known for a while with your study, but I had never seen this particular fact. And it makes me want to sit down and do a little alternate nostril breathing before every meal, which is good because it also brings you into presence for the meal, so you can enjoy the meal.
Well, if you think about it too, with our parasympathetic nervous system, we have that rest and digest and our body functions. And when we're in fight or flight, like everything stops so that all the energy can go to our arms and legs so that we can like run away and get away. So nothing is being digested. It's kind of like when they say, don't eat and then go swim. It's because, everything is going to go to your motor functions and your food just sits in your belly, which doesn't help anything. And we forget that when we're so stressed and even stress eating, our body doesn't even have a chance to grab the nutrients as fuel. So we don't even feel like we're fueled.
That makes so much sense. I mean, it really does. It makes a lot of sense. So interesting. So this also is interesting, and you're going to share a tool that you use to measure this term SpO2, or peripheral capillary oxygen saturation. Say that 5 times fast. So this is analyzing how much oxygen is actually in your bloodstream, how much oxygen gets to the red blood cells, and the red blood cells carry that off around the body to the places where it's needed. Do you want to talk a little bit about this, Debbie?
Sure. And it really hits home for me because Mark, my husband, he's had some issues with his health, and recently he's had these like multiple small blood clots in his lungs. He had like shortness of breath, and he thought, oh, this is probably because I'm overweight and I'm not exercising. Well, and it's kind of twofold because he's always been kind of a specimen. He's always been an athlete, and like in his last 20 years of life, he's really gained a lot of weight. And, it's part of like, I want to exercise, but I can't, and I can't breathe. And we found out that he had these blood clots, and now he's got blood thinners. And he actually uses a tool. It's called an oximeter. And they'll use it at the doctor's office where you put it on a finger and it will actually read the amount of oxygen in your bloodstream. So see if you can look at it here. This one is from Breathology. So what it will do, we can even maybe try mine. I think I have the batteries in it. So you want to relax, you put it on your finger, and it will show you your pulse rate and then how much oxygen is in your bloodstream. So mine is at 99 and 67 is what it came up with. And that's probably because I was just breathing with you. And what I find is, yes, I usually rate pretty high with oxygen in my bloodstream. But, there's days I put it on and I'm at 96 or 97. But when I'm consciously breathing, I'm up in the 99%. And my heart rate is usually at around 60 or lower. And with Mark, when we put it on Mark, he was in the range of like 92 to 94. And when it's at 92, he's finding he has shortness of breath when he's walking or even getting up off the couch. And as Dr. said, if you're at 92 oxygen to your organs, and this can create some major problems. So I think a handy tool like this, the oximeter, is maybe $20 to $30. You can find them. It's a nice tool to just check in. What I found with Mark, which was really interesting, is both of us being competitive swimmers when we were younger, we always like to do like breath hold contests, and we play around with breathing, like who can hold their breath or get their lungs to expand the largest. And we found even when we played a little bit, me underwater, even when we played with breath holding, his oxygen levels went up to around the 98, 99%. And it was just like playing. So he was sold. He's like, oh my gosh, I had no idea that, this can give me a boost of oxygen in my bloodstream. So I sent him home with my AeroFit. And we'll look at that. It's a piece you put in your mouth and you strengthen your diaphragm through breath. And it's sold in a minute because you get immediate results and you can see. And even his heart rate, especially with a longer exhale and really consciously focusing on your breath, his heart rate dropped immediately. He's like, this is magic. I know I could do it like when I go to the doctor and get my blood pressure checked. I can usually like relax myself and lower my blood pressure and heart rate. But, this showed him how breath changes that immediately.
It's incredible. And, with COVID now, you are hearing about cases where people are on ventilators and this level is low, 90%. And what that means is that their bodies are not receiving, the red blood cells are not receiving the oxygen that's being supplied. So this is a great thing to be practicing in this time to keep your lungs strong and to help keep that flowing through your body.
Exactly. There's also other ways to increase oxygen in your bloodstream.
Let's look at some of those.
Of course, and what we tell everyone, get outside, get fresh air, open your windows. Even with it being so hot recently, I tell Mark to, you take a break from the air conditioning. Our home air conditioning systems, I'm not sure how much fresh air is coming in, and some work better than others, but turn it off and get the fresh air because that's really going to feed you.
Well, and they say when you go outside and walk, even if it is hot, obviously if there's a heat on index, keep it short. But when you go outside and you get a whiff of that fresh air naturally, you start to breathe more deeply and fully. And so you're going to get a nice boost of oxygenation, even if it's a short period of time that you're out.
Well, and water too. Hydrate. Get your cells nice and lubricated. Get we need the fresh water too as well.
Yeah, the lungs have to be hydrated to receive oxygen as well. So it's important in a lot of different ways. Eat iron-rich foods. This is a big one. Debbie and I were talking before the show. So our red blood cells, as we know, do a lot of the work with oxygen in the body. They bring it around to the body, and iron is helpful for the red blood cells. And what do you use to add iron to your diet, Debbie?
Well, of course, dark chocolate. Dark chocolate is an excellent source and good, healthy, low sugar dark chocolate. But, spinach is great. Beans. I mean, Kelly, you make us a lot of beans.
I do. Yeah, especially white beans and soybeans, but all legumes have a good amount of iron as far as plant sources. And anything green and leafy, if you're looking at primarily plant sources, are good. For those who consume meat, organ meats are good, and also lower fat meats are good too. So
Well, and even apples, right? Even
oh yeah,
apples are high
apples
in
are
iron.
good. Certain fruits. I think I have. Let me just see here. I have a couple other things. Let me just. I can always edit this too. Yeah, kale fruits such as apples, and then lean protein. So eggs too are another one that can be good. But if you can go to nutritiondata.com and look up any fruit or vegetable and look at the iron content. And you can even just Google iron content of apples and look at what the daily requirements are. And you can figure out how to work in the foods that make you feel really good and boost your iron.
Well, and I think, hydrating, fresh air, movement, it's also the conscious breathing, that's everything that's on this list. And just again, reintroduce if you've gotten away from it, if you've been cocooning and forgetting, like even just go outside and sit in a chair outside your front door of your house, to get some fresh air, get outside, get some sun. It's so important.
Absolutely. And with exercise, Debbie, you mentioned a little earlier in the show, VO2 max. As we're improving that, we're improving our body's ability to receive and utilize the oxygen that we are taking in. So exercise is important, and that's something that, aside from walking, I know I haven't been doing as much of in this time. And so trying to do a little bit more of that because it does feel so good, and there's a huge shift in brain chemistry for me.
There is, and even going out, a lot of times, well, especially when I was in college and training in the exercise physiology department, it was always about cardio, cardio, cardio. And really, we're getting so many benefits from walking, and you don't have to go out and kill yourself. And really, even just getting back to nose breathing. When you're going for a hike and breathe through your nose, it's amazing. The amount of oxygen that you get. And it's not as easy as you think. A lot of people are so used to mouth breathing still. But go for a simple walk or walk up a hill and breathe through your nose. And as you can breathe through your nose easier, increase, the difficulty of the exercise and see what happens. Even just as simple as Kelly has this great 8-minute app, and she's always doing like squats and things, in the kitchen, in the living room, wherever, this 8-minute quick exercise. And I love it.
Yeah, and it's so funny. I loaded that up on my phone this morning. I'm like, all right, I'm ready to get back to this because it feels so good. You give away 8 minutes of your life and you get back hours of energy, and we understand why with some of this discussion. So this is a good thing to keep in mind, especially if, like me, you find yourself breathing more shallowly than normal, and if you have awareness of that, it might be time to practice some of the techniques Debbie showed us at the beginning of the video, or look up other breathing exercises that are simple to do, alternate nostril breathing, or just go outside and breathe through your nose as you walk. Are there any others, Debbie, that you want to add? Any other favorites that you like to practice?
Well, I think the easiest one is have your exhale be 2 times as long as your inhale.
Mm.
Just really practicing that. I mean, there's so many breathing exercises and you can do them all, but the simplest one is simply if you inhale for 4 seconds, exhale for 8 seconds, and just be aware of that. And then I think for most people, breathing through your nose. Just simply focus and be aware of your breath.
Beautiful. I love it. Well, thank you everybody so much for tuning in. We'll be back next week with more. Next week is a request show. You wanted a little bit of yoga since we have Debbie Williamson here, fabulous yoga teacher. So we are going to talk yoga next week. Anything you want to say, Debbie, before we close?
No, this was great, and I can't wait to share with you my 10 favorite yoga poses. All right, take care.
Well, great. Everybody stay tuned for a brief message. Hi, everybody. I'm Kelly Lynn.
And I'm Debbie.
And we want you on our show. We'd love to hear more about what you're doing in life that influences others in a positive way or inspires others, as well as any tools you might have to share.
All you have to do is email me. Debbie@wildkauai.com. We hope to hear from you.
Hi, everybody. I'm Kelly.
And I'm Debbie.
Welcome to
Nice
Debbie.
to see you.
Debbie and Kelly live. Let's do that again. You can start it. Hi, everybody. I'm